You're going to take half the audience out when you go.
Have a great Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Sweet. That woman does know. She knows a lot. You want to go into the other and come back? No.
Just give it a minute for the room to clear out. One of our presenters is not here yet. He has messaged me and he's on his way. So we will go ahead and go into the Planning and Development public hearing for the solar farm text amendment. While Miss Jennifer's getting ready, we want to give our condolences out to the Revels family, and we do have a couple members who, commissioners who may have to step out early. We're going to try to be steadfast on our time, but if you do see a commissioner get up and leave, it would be simply because they want to attend the services of that family. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jennifer Cassell. I'm with Planning and Development Services. This is case number LDC 24-000001. The application is for a text amendment to the Land Development Code. The applicant is Kimberly Horn. The agent is Mark Shelton. The request is to amend Putnam County's Land Development Code by adding solar farms as a use by right in the agriculture and agriculture estate zoning districts, as well as the addition of a new section 45-201 defining solar farms and its standards. Florida Statute 163.32053 specifically states a solar facility shall be a permitted use in all agricultural land use categories in a local government comprehensive plan and all agricultural zoning districts within an unincorporated area, and must comply with the setback and landscape buffer area criteria for other similar uses in the agriculture district. Maintaining consistency between Florida statutes, land development codes, and the comprehensive plan is the main goal and responsibility of staff. The proposed text amendment will bring our land development code into compliance with Florida Statute 163.3205. Staff recommends approval of the request to amend the Land Development Code as the request is consistent with Florida statutes and consistent with other comprehensive plan goals, objectives, and policies. At the scheduled public hearing on November 13, 2024, the Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the proposed text amendment. I would also like to point out that there has been a revision since the last hearing, and that would be to the standards. In section 45-201, we had an addition of an additional 4, 5, and 6. 4 reads, solar farms will increase all corresponding setbacks to increments of 10 feet, may increase the allowed impervious surface by increments of 5% of the development of site. Number 5 is, in addition to increased setback values, increasing the width of vegetated buffer by increments of 10 feet may also allow an increase in impervious surface by 5%. Number 6 is internal pathways shall adhere to access width requirements established by the NFPA. Questions?
Are there any questions? Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did we address Commissioner Newbold's question about additional setbacks from agricultural?
So that would be the trade for that, essentially. If we were to change the setback requirements for all agricultural districts, it would create so many parcels that are in non-compliance. Okay. So instead, we kind of did a trade-off, as where if they increased their setbacks, we would increase their impervious allowances.
Gotcha. I understand that. I kind of saw that in the state statute, but, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Newbold?
I do appreciate you guys creatively addressing the concern, and I like the idea that it incentivizes the idea as opposed to penalizing. I think these entities will likely take advantage of that and be good for both sides. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, this is a public hearing. I'm going to open the floor for public comment for or against this item. All right, having no one come to the podium, back to the commission.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the LDC text amendment 24-00001, solar farm text amendment.
Second.
We have a proper motion and a proper second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, we'll go back to presentations. Craig McLean with the Waterways and Trails Committee and Sam Carr with the Waterways and Trails Committee. They have both given us a handout, and it's also been submitted to Ashley, the Clerk of Courts. Good morning, Craig.
Hey, good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. It's good to be here this morning to speak to you. Welcome to the new commissioners back at the work. So it's good to have you aboard. This morning, we had drafted a letter through the Waterways and Trails Committee on what we refer to as the Palatka Gap, which is a section of the Palatka to Lake Butler Trail that continues into the city of Palatka. A few years ago, Putnam County had agreed to be the maintenance entity for that section of trail once DOT finished the construction. DOT has recently announced portions of the trail that they have acquired and the programming to do the construction. It's out a number of years, and that's like 6 to 8 in some aspects. So what we've put together is a letter to DOT asking them if they could expedite the completion of that section. It's been envisioned for over 20, and it's been worked on by DOT at different levels for about 15 years. So we're just, through that letter, just wanting to elevate the subject a little bit with DOT, get a conversation going with them about what does expedition mean, what can they do on their end to move along a little faster. So that's pretty much for it. If you have any questions on the project itself and the extent, the duration, it basically runs from the Palatka Airport, the missing gap between the trail system, the Palatka Airport to Highway 17, which is about where the Italian Latin Grill used to be. That's a
Right.
nice landmark for folks to think of. So.
Right. Before I call on you, Commissioner Harvey, I served on the Waterways and Trails Committee and asked Craig to bring this forward to us because of the letter. As you know, anytime we receive requests for support, those are the type of things that should come to the board and not individually as commissioners. And so that's why he's here today. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Craig, good to see you this morning. Thank you for being here. That section of the trail is probably the most challenging. I don't want to use another word, but there's some obstacles to get across right there. You said that the BOCC committed to the maintenance of that trail. When did we do that? Do you remember?
I can go back. It's about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Back at the same time, the commission had agreed to be the maintenance entities. They turned in the proper paperwork to DOT to also maintain the section of the St. Johns River to Sea Loop from East Palatka to the south county line.
I want to say I don't want anybody to be scared off because of the word maintenance. We haven't really done any. I mean, it's not like the trails are falling apart. They're really built well. So we haven't done a whole lot of maintenance, and sometimes that scares us off a little bit, but in this section, it's not a worrisome for me at all. So thank you.
Yeah, it's
Thank you,
mostly
Madam
been mowing and blowing off and
Yeah.
just keeping it, somebody going through once in a while to make sure it's
Correct.
passable. And just to be clear, Commissioners, this is not an expense to your local tax dollars. This would all be this is all funded at the FDOT level. We're just looking for a letter of support.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Do you have any other comments or questions? All right. I would like at
Madam
least.
Chair, I move that we support this cause with a letter and allow you to sign the letter of support for trail maintenance in this trail gap.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And then, good morning, Mr. Claus, Sam Carr. I say that because my grandbabies love him. They see him as Santa Claus all the time. Anyway, so Mr. Carr is going to give us an update on a request for Dunn's Creek State Park.
You mean he looks like Santa Claus?
Yeah, I know. And he is, this is
I am
the information.
Well, thank you, and good to see all the new faces and everything, and the old ones too. So, very glad to be here on behalf of the Waterways and Trails Committee. In one of our meetings back in earlier in the or late in summer, we started a discussion on Dunn's Creek State Park, and Dunn's Creek State Park has been a state park since 2001, and in 2019, a management plan was written. And in that management plan was for the development of Dunn's Creek State Park. And so it has just basically sat here. I've been involved almost 20 years with Dunn's Creek State Park through the Friends of Dunn's Creek State Park. And I'm not representing them at this point in time, but I'm representing the Waterways and Trails Committee to say that we're going to try to move on the development of Dunn's Creek State Park by making requests to the legislative session coming up in January. I would love to have the commission's agreement and support to do that. Basically, it's 6,200 acres. The brochure that I gave you is the financial statement basically for Dunn's Creek State Park. And it would be a revenue generator for the county from the standpoint of having campsites out there. We would earn TDC dollars for every campsite and every day they spent out there. Currently, the Florida Park Service has the Rodman Campground, which is full. It has 68 campsites, and we gain thousands of dollars worth of revenue from those campsites every single year. You know, earlier in the year, the
Legislator?
the Park Service decided to put golf courses and this, that, and the other and all these things and spend millions of dollars in development, yet here sits Dunn's Creek State Park, undeveloped, and the plan is there and all of that. So we want the county commission's agreement to go forward with this and present this to the legislative session coming up in February 9th, or in January.
All right, very good. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So I went and visited Dunn's Creek State Park, I guess about 3 months ago with Sam, and I had only been out there once or twice when my mother was working with the equestrian community, and I thought it was just the old goat farm, for lack of a better term. But after the tour that Sam took me on, I did not realize there were over 6,000 acres that are there that could be used for camping, trail riding, concerts, just a huge underutilized resource, Putnam County. I would like to see us get behind it. I think that it would be a great thing for our community, for our children, and for our future. There's not anything like that in surrounding counties that is just sitting dormant. It's a huge opportunity for us.
Thank you, Commissioner Alexander. Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Carr, I would love to get behind it, and I really think that's a jewel out there. I just need you to spell out what we're getting behind when that time comes. Sometimes in the legislative process, the narrative changes.
Sure.
And we need to have defined goals that we're looking for, and this commissioner will get behind that.
No problem. I do have the management plan, and I can forward that to you guys to see
Well,
exactly.
just something from the Waterways and Trails that this
That's
is
fine.
these are A, B, C, D that we're after, and I'm on board.
Okay, that's
Thank
fine.
you.
That's fine.
Madam
Just
Chair.
to, again, give you an idea of the traffic out there now, you've got the brochure and what the state park says, but through the Friends of Dunn's Creek State Park, we're going to realize over 2,000 people coming from outside the county, coming to the county and enjoying those things. And in February, there's going to be what they call the Mammoth March. And they take, and these are people who are walking at least 20 miles in a day on the trails at Dunn's Creek State Park. There are 1,000 registers. They had to close it off. It's overbooked at this point in time, and that'll be happening in February. So these are the kind of people that you get there. We don't have a dock that you can dock boats at, which is totally ridiculous, and we don't have a campground for people to stay at, And we need that in Putnam County. We definitely do. So thank you. And I'll follow Commissioner Leota's and Joshua's direction. Joshua's going to be the chair of our committee now, and so we'll work with them to get you what you need. Okay?
Thank you, Sam. So, excuse me, being on that committee, I definitely encourage this. I can see this being on so many different levels, being such an asset for Putnam County. And again, this is a request not for our local tax dollars, but us asking the state to step up and use that park and create a great outdoor park for all of people to come visit. I'm part of a group on Facebook because I have a camper, and we go camping, and all the state parks are full in Florida all year long. You have to basically get on a one-year waiting list. And so having some campsites available for this in Putnam County would be great. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to echo what you were saying about this being state dollars, and it's not coming from our county, but it would drive additional commerce to our community. So it's truly a boon for us.
It's a gem. It's a win-win. All right, can we get just a motion for a letter of support? I'm sorry, go
Going
ahead.
to bring back some,
Yeah, okay, I think Commissioner, well, we don't have time, because we're looking at the legislative delegation meeting is prior to our next board meeting.
The
We can-
management plan, just to say, the management plan is about $5 million. Out of that, the campgrounds is about half of that for the development of the roads in there, and they've already drilled the wells, they've already paved the road down to the turnoff and all of that. So the management plan 2019, and that's been there. And so the only reason it hasn't been done is because the state hasn't allocated the money to do it.
So we would be encouraging the state to follow up and
Follow-
do what their actual
Do what their
management
management plan
is.
says, that's
Yes.
right. That's
Okay.
exactly it.
I have no problem with that, Madam Chair, as long as we keep it in the confines of the Dunn's Creek and no surprises from outside of that area.
Okay, all right, I think we can handle,
I'll
no
make a
worries.
motion that Commissioner, our chairman, allows to follow the management plan to Dunn's Creek
Yeah.
and in that confined area.
Okay, all right,
I'll second that.
thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Sam, we appreciate
Thank you,
your
Commissioners.
presentation.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to consent agenda items. Are there any public comment on agenda items only, consent agenda items only? Are there any commissioners who'd like to pull anything from the consent?
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull item E.
All right? Anyone else?
Madam Chair, hearing no one else pulling an item, I'd like to move consent agenda for approval of items A, B, C, D, F, G, H.
All right, we have a motion on the floor
Second.
and a proper second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Commissioner Harvey, item E.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say the new mayor of Interlaken is here, Pastor Rick Haynes. If you'll stand up and be recognized. Thank you, Mayor, for being in the audience. And the reason I said that is Mayor Haynes has really took upon himself to be involved in the community. We have a wonderful sports complex out in the West End that, frankly, we put no money in because no one wanted to use the park. And it was being torn up, and there's no sense fixing things that are just going to get torn up. So this is an opportunity for the people in the west end of our county to use that facility that was put together by the volunteers many, many years ago. And actually, the Army Reserve went out there with their pans and bulldozers and practiced and dug and moved dirt, and a lot of things were done. So I look forward to this. Last year on my appropriation money that I had for capital improvement, we put some money into some things out there. We just recently had to put a new well in. So we're looking forward to the youth of Putnam County, West End, to go out there and use that. The roads are paved to that area now. So it's a win-win situation for the youngsters of Putnam County and the West End. And I just want to say thank you for doing that. And we appreciate the effort of that. So, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'd like to move item E for approval, please.
All right, we have a proper motion.
Second that.
Second from Commissioner Alexander. Any discussion? Commissioner Harvey, I would like to just say thank you for your leadership in that. Obviously, having our kids out and about in the community doing sports activities is very important to us, so thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. I also want to take a point of privilege, and on item B for the fee schedule, we had some constituents come at the last board meeting, and this is fixing that. That was just simply an error on staff's level at Paradise Point, and so we have resolved that, and I appreciate the department heads and the staff working to get that taken care of. Thank you. Moving on, we are on code enforcement case, fine reduction case. Good morning, Thomas.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
Code case is 2007-00509. Address is 121 Brett Avenue. The property owner's name is Royal Palm Sunshine Group, LLC. The violation was unsafe structure and permits required. Original fine amount was $156,487. There was a tax surplus received on July 3rd for $1,955.66. The total cost of enforcement action was $1,972. The property owners recently purchased the property. It is now compliant. We are requesting approval for the fine reduction and requesting approval to use the tax surplus received for $1,955.66, which would bring the total still due to $16.34. If the board approves, we recommend the reduced fine to be paid within 90 days.
Thank you, Thomas. Is the applicant present? All right.
Madam Chair, I move approval of case number 2007-00509 to use the tax surplus funds of $1955.66 and pay $16.34 within 90 days.
All right. Proper motion? Second by Commissioner Palacier. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. All right, moving into new business, we have administration discussion regarding project funds for fiscal year 25.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
This is a discussion regarding our last year we established a special project funds for each of the commissioners. Each district commissioner was allocated $200,000, and through the year they could spend those funds as directed, provided that they met a few criteria, meaning that the expenditure was otherwise a lawful purpose of taxpayer-funded projects. It must be a capital expenditure or a one-time cost that doesn't create a reoccurring need in the budget. It must be fully compliant with the procurement code, and the fund balances or the project initiatives are reported quarterly during the budget reports. During fiscal year 25's budget development, which all of you know kind of starts at the beginning of the year, we had other board members who were terming off and didn't want to make the decision on this initiative without 3 new members having some input. So today we're bringing it to you to determine whether or not this commission would like to initiate a similar program. And we also have included for you last year's spend report. There is a balance encumbered or carryover balance for 2 of the commissioners. District 5 had a very small amount, but he still has 2 projects that are in the process of closing out. So it is likely those funds will be needed to close out those 2 projects that were still in process before he left. And then, of course, Commissioner Harvey still has a little bit of funds to allocate. Staff is looking for direction from the board as to how you'd like to proceed.
All right, very good. If you look on your agenda packet, you'll see how the previous commissioners had utilized this. A lot of good projects were done, such as Pico Road boat ramp repairs, some lighting at Francis Field, and other sports complexes. And Johnson Community Park also received some things. So there's a whole list, fire station infrastructure upgrade. So lots of things that happened. And we are the ones on the front line who are hearing the needs in the community. And that's all I have to say at that point. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This, I just want to remind the board, this isn't a slush fund for us. This is actual money that was saved in our true-up, and we put money back in reserve. Building reserves is good. Building too many reserves is not good. So we need to get the money back in our community. And I believe last year we saw the commissioners were able to see things in their district that needed immediate help, and we were able to get there and help using capital improvement funds that we were, instead of coming back and requesting the whole board and going through all that process, moving pretty quick and getting things done in our community. So I support this wholeheartedly, and that's where I stand. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do we have any other discussion at the board? Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move approval of this item.
We have a second by Commissioner Pelletier. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Animal Services Partnership between Animal Services and Best Friends Animal Society. Good morning, Mr. Helms.
Good morning. How are y'all doing? Hopefully y'all had a
Good
good
morning,
turkey
Ms.
day
Kelly.
and a future Christmas and New Year's and all that good stuff. This time of the season goes by quickly. But I will be very quick and simple. I meet with AWL probably, at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, depending on the week. And they brought us some information about Best Friends Animal Society. And I think this would be very wise just for my staff in general. There will be a partnership that we work with them. So we're really not looking for a vote, but just kind of a wave of approval if there's something you want us to go into and look into. I think the benefits will truly outweigh anything that we have to give them. It's mostly data that we give everybody anyways that they'll have to look at. And for me, with my staff, the more training that I can get my staff, especially at the cost of zero, is something that would be wonderful for us. And so just in dog handling and how to deal with just the ins and outs of a kennel, they're going to give us some of that training. I think it would be very beneficial. I have Miss Diane Kelly here. She's a wonderful person to work with. She's so nice and such a good heart. And I will introduce her, but if you have any questions for me, I think of it from my old time in the education world as building a bag of tricks. And as an educator, as a leader, you have to have ways to do that. And so this will give us another bag in our trick that we're able to adapt and improvise and do things that our animals need. And so I will introduce Ms. Kelly. And
I think we like the word toolbox.
It's a great. Hi, welcome to the new commission. Very exciting. My name is Diane Kelly. I live in Crescent City, and some of you know me as one of the leaders of the Animal Welfare League of Putnam County, and you all helped a great deal with the spay and neuter capability that we're going to be launching very soon. And this is another major effort that we want to see move forward, because it's not just, we definitely want to prevent unnecessary births of animals to help control the population, but we also need to enable Putnam County Animal Control with all the tools and the services that they need to be successful. You can't look at social media and not see people pleading for help with these poor animals. But anyway, that aside, I have known folks from Best Friends Animal Society for many years now. They bring in about $200 to $230 million a year. They're a huge organization. Best Friends is leading the national effort of no-kill. So they have a massive goal to get the country to no-kill by the end of 2025. And that really means that any animal that enters a shelter leaves alive if they can be saved. And can be saved, Carolyn Fitzgerald is going to talk a little bit more about that shortly. But the bottom line is we, Putnam County, we're not quite there yet. We're not at a no-kill state. We are considered a kill county. Not a good thing that we want to be recognized for. Not that we haven't made progress, we have. And Brian and Pookie and others at Animal Control have done a phenomenal job. And we just want to try to help enable them with more tools and support, because they're doing great. We want to keep them. We want to nurture them, give them what they need. And we certainly have to do this for the animals. So we want to, my role has been to help facilitate the connection between Best Friends Animal Society and Brian and his team, so that we can get Putnam County to a no-kill state and even beyond 90%. Really, no-kill means those that can be saved, at least 90% of them leave the shelter alive, and that's what we're focused on. Best Friends leading the no-kill effort has been instrumental since 2016 to really move the nation closer to no-kill. The nation's not there yet, but hopefully by the end of 25 we'll be there, and we want to be a part of that. Carolyn Fitzgerald is the individual at Best Friends Animal Society that we've been working with. She's a wonderful individual. She's actually got a lot of experience on the ground floor doing what Brian's team does in her past. A very credible organization, very credible young lady. She's a senior strategist for Best Friends for the East region. So we'd like to introduce her. She's telephonically so that she can share a little bit more about Putnam County State and what they can do to help us. And just one last thing I wanted to share. Many of you may be aware that we had a lot of animals, unfortunately, that had to be euthanized. I believe it was in August, and due to a massive parvo outbreak. I asked Carolyn recently, I said, Carolyn, I talked to her about that particular case briefly, and I said, could Best Friends, had we had an arrangement with you, could you have potentially helped us limit that problem? And she said, yes, because what they have, as Brian mentioned, they do have standard operating procedures that also are related to helping to control the spread, the detection and the spread of disease. So it is entirely probable that had we had a relationship with them and implemented certain procedures, we might have been able to sharply curtail the death rate of those poor animals. So that's just an example. So we can't say, for example, that parvo outbreak, oh well, can't control it, so sorry we had a bad month. That's not going to be good enough as we move forward. We're going to look at ways to prevent that. Anyway, that is it. We'd like to introduce Carolyn. Is she on? Thank you so much. We're going to call her number, okay? As she's doing that, you may have heard too that there are big cities in the nation that are now considered no-kill, like Los Angeles and I believe New York City. So Best Friends was instrumental there as well.
Yes, please. So while we're doing that, I see Commissioner Harvey's. Do you want to wait until the presentation's
Yes,
over?
if you don't mind. Thank you.
I think you're fine.
Hello.
Good morning. This is Putnam County Commissioners.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. So Ms. Diane Kelly has given us an intro, and she has said that you have a few words she'd like to share with us.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me this morning. This is the first time I've ever done a commissioners meeting over the phone, so please grant me some grace as I experiment with this. Were you able to look at our offer of support for Putnam County?
It is in our package.
Okay. So Best Friends Animal Society is very interested in supporting Putnam, the community, in implementing this offer of support. It's at no charge to the shelter, so if there are any funding needs that go along with this, we can talk about funding at a later time. And I wanted to ask if there was any questions about this or organization that I could address to help push this forward.
Not at this time. Diane, was there anything particular you would like her to talk about?
Carolyn, did you want to share maybe a little bit about what you see in Putnam County in terms of the data, and then also kind of how you see this partnership moving forward, more specifically the types of changes or enhancements you'd like to collaborate with us to implement?
Yes. Thank you, Diane. So we're looking to help improve and the life-saving programming at Putnam County Animal Shelter. Last year, according to us, about 91 animals were not able to leave the shelter, and we're hoping to implement some programmatic support to make a solve for that. The first thing on the offer of support is a shelter review. And what this would look like is a review of shelter operations from intake to outcomes with recommendations and program implementation to support the shelter. Putnam County is doing a great job in making life-saving a priority and supporting its community, and really want to offer that extra support to the staff and the community to help make these things seamless. One of the things I noticed was to offer a foster program mentorship, which would allow our staff at Best Friends Animal Society to work with the staff at Putnam to support foster programming for animals that may need additional time or space outside of the shelter capacity, which will greatly help expand the experience of the community, also preparing those animals for adoption or transfer at a later time. Another thing that we offered was it's called LOS, or length of stay, pathway planning, and daily rounds. And these are shelter standards and different things that we can do to help seamlessly allow animals from the time of intake to outcome, where every animal is prioritized. And we know the pathway, like when a dog comes in, what does it need to receive in order to make it adoptable or to have it move through the shelter seamlessly. And the fourth thing we're offering is adoption, promotion, and community engagement trainings. These are aimed to increase and coordinate adoptions, foster and transfer partnerships, and also to help support a mentorship through social media. We work with shelters around the country in implementing these programs, and each plan and each offering it's not cookie cutter, so we work with Shelter A here and we're doing the same exact training. It's tailored to the unique community that the shelter serves.
Okay.
And just as an FYI, right, in 2023, we were at 83% as far as the save rate. And surrounding counties on average averaged 88%. Florida is one of the key target areas in the nation to move in a much better direction. So Florida's already behind the times a little bit, and we are part of that, although we've made progress, and that's important, but we want to continue to move forward. So,
And I've seen counties also that are much worse than what Putnam County is.
Surprisingly, St. Johns County is the worst of the surrounding ones, as
That's
I
correct.
understand. I would have thought just the opposite, but many are doing better, few are doing worse, but we just want to continue to move forward.
All right, Ms. Carolyn, we're not going to keep you on the phone. Is there any questions for Carolyn from the board? All right, thank you for your presentation. I have one question. Well, the lights are lit up. I'll let you go first. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to say it's going to sound a little callous, and I don't mean it to be. Everybody knows my position on animal control, and I wish we weren't in it. I wish people would take care of their animals the way I took care of mine. I can't afford another one the way I want to take care of one, so I'm not going to be in that business. But I wish everybody would. By statute, we don't have to be in that business, but we choose to do it, and we get a black eye constantly from doing it. So, Mr. Helms, I want to say to you and your staff, thank you for all the work that you've done since you've been here about moving this forward. We used to have a really bad reputation, and it's gotten better. I don't know if we'll ever get to be a completely no-kill, because some animals do need to be put down. There's no doubt about that. Some who maul children's faces off, I have no pity on that, and I'll keep my comments about the owners to myself. It should not happen in today's world, and people should take care of it. But I do believe we're on the right track. I believe with the foster program that you instigated, I believe that the UF process that you're working on, I believe the new animal shelter, that was Carl Beck's vision of a better place for people to come in and adopt, is going to be significant. And I believe that the location of this with the vet tech program from the Sheriff's Department, we have a lot of things going in our favor that's going to help us. But again, the responsibility comes back to the owner of the pet to take care of that pet. And it should not have to be that it's dropped off at county government to take care of. So I applaud you. I really support this. I want this to be successful, and but government, in my opinion, should not be the end-all to wear-all. And that's the problem I'm facing with this. Because truly, if you take government and our budget, and if people just police themselves, how much money will we not have to charge the citizens of Putnam County? And I understand that, and they won't. But, you know, I feel for the animals. It's not their fault. It's not their fault a bit. And it's sad that people just abandon. We had one last week in Commissioner Alexander's district that the residents are feeding these cats because the people just walked away and left them. That's not fair. No one should have to do that. But also the brown dog that lives in my neighborhood that's now chasing people up and down the road because the homeowner just decides it's his right to let the animal go. That's not fair either. So, you know, but Mr. Helms, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the work you've done, because this is a complex problem, and it's not going to be solved by one thing. It's going to be solved by all of us putting our heads together, all the groups getting together, and spade and neuter is a big part of the front end of the problem. So if we can get that accomplished, you know, so thank you.
Can I just
Thank you,
make a
Madam
quick
Chair.
comment?
You can.
Just a quick comment
Yes,
and
ma'am.
an accolade to Brian. Brian's working very closely with the Animal Welfare League. Thea Belden is here behind me, and they're working very closely with others to look at animal ownership accountabilities and how do we get the right things in place and how do we then enforce them. So just wanted you to know we're very sensitive of that. We all feel the same way, and he's doing already a lot of work in that regard. So that's another prong in this whole effort that we're focused on.
And maybe there's a reward instead of an enforcement. Maybe there's a help. You know, some people might get over their head and they have 2 cats, and all of a sudden next week they got 4 cats, and the following week they got 10 cats. I'm just maybe there's some incentive that we can do to help that person, because people that hoard don't realize they hoard until somebody says, hey, look at your yard, or look at you got a problem here. Well, I got 30 cats I take care of. You know, well, how many do you really need? So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Commissioner Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo what Larry had to say. I attended the AWL meeting about 3 weeks ago, and the accolades and the praise that Mr. Helms is receiving today on his efforts are genuine. He was out of town taking his daughter on a trip. He wasn't there to plead his case, and I heard nothing but good things about Mr. Helms. So that's all I want to do is thank you, and thank you, Diane, for the efforts that you guys put forth. I'm an animal lover, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you, Commissioner Alexander. Commissioner Newbold.
Thank you. I wanted to express my support for this partnership. We have an animal services program that's on the rise. I had no idea how big this issue was, coming into office. Learned a ton out there, and it's nice to see the spirit of cooperation, the willingness for our staff to take on these partnerships and take on those new tools. So thank you all.
All right.
Are you looking for a wave of support?
I believe they are.
I'm waving in support. Other commissioners are waving?
Absolutely.
All right.
You got unanimous.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Thank you, Mr. Helms. All right. Next item on the agenda is Public Works acceptance of multiple right-of-way deeds.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
This is just some cleanup work that Miss Maria had done, where they had done lot splits, and it's shaping up our right-of-ways where the landowners gave us the 66 feet that's required in case we need to go back in the neighborhood and do drainage work, or we need to do additional things, road maintenance. It just is cleaning up the right-of-way. So that's the acceptance of these deeds. It's just strictly for cleanup of things that have been brought through the building department or whatever that has a legal lot split or something that just gave us the access that's required by the Land Development Code.
Is this the only time this would have to come in front of us if we vote on it today?
I don't know that it's the only time that it'll ever come back in front of you. Yes. This particular one is for these cases, yes, but I mean, we may bring more back in the future to
Yes, sir,
clean
I
up right-of-ways.
understand that, but for these
Okay.
particular ones?
Oh,
Okay.
yes, ma'am. Okay,
Okay.
sorry,
All
misunderstood
right.
the question.
Any discussion from the board?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move approval of the acceptance of multiple right-of-way deeds, resolution number 2024-141.
We have a proper
Second.
motion and a proper second from Commissioner Pelletier. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item D, Public Works request to advertise for a public hearing to vacate a portion of West Bay Street.
Yes, ma'am. This just puts it on your radar so we can move it forward to the next meeting to vacate a portion. The gentleman owns both sides of the road and just wants to vacate the right-of-way in the middle. So it's a common practice that we do. Since we bring it forward to you guys and schedule a public hearing, this is the first stop before you guys put it on a further agenda to have a public hearing.
All right. So this will come back to a public hearing. Do you need a motion today?
Yes, ma'am. We need a motion to push it forward to a public hearing.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move approval of moving this forward to the next meeting on January 14th at 9:05 a.m.
Proper motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Alexander. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Oh, I didn't allow for discussion. Was there any discussion? All right. Item E, Public Works Saratoga Harbor Drainage Easement.
Yes, ma'am. Once again, this is just some drainage easements we needed as a 2023 dirt to pave one out. This is a neighborhood that required an extensive amount of drainage with the topography of the land and the elevation changes. And this was working with the citizens down there to get the drainage we need to accept these easements in for the shedding of the water into the lakes, and it eventually ends up in the river. But this is just a place where we can put the runoff water from the new paved roads that are going in the neighborhood.
So again, this wouldn't go back to another hearing item. This is for this situation.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. Today would
Okay.
be, if you guys accept these drainage easements, and we have the ability to work inside these easements in order to put the drainage into the proper location.
All right.
I would move for approval of item E, resolution 2024-143.
All right, we have a proper motion
Second?
and a second. Any discussion from the board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, like sign? Motion passes. All right, moving on to administration, our legislative day priorities discussion. As you know, our legislators, representatives will meet in, I believe it's January 9th, here in this boardroom, and we'll have an opportunity to go over our priorities and legislative requests. Today we moved the Duns Creek State Park. That will not be an appropriations request, however, it'll be a letter of support to be added to this. Administrator Suggs has given you our legislative request on a piece of paper. Administrator, did you want to go through these, or do we just want to?
Madam Chair, however you would like to do that this morning, I'll be more than happy to go through each one of them real quick. You know, we had talked about this a few weeks ago. This is just a list of some conversations I've had with staff as well as elected officials, and these are in no particular order. You have port infrastructure. As you know, we're continuing to push that port project through. This is for the expansion and development of some property between our warehouses and the annex property for future development out there. Your Fort Gates Ferry, this has been an ongoing project for quite some time. We've got the engineering department, Public Works Engineering is looking at the landings and hopefully coming up with some type of cost estimate to complete this project.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can we take these one at a time as we go
Sure.
through, if you don't mind?
However you want to do
Would that be
it.
appropriate?
That'll be fine. All right, so he's already discussed port infrastructure. Does anybody have any questions or comments on port infrastructure? Okay, Fort Gates Ferry.
I do have a question on that, or a comment to make. You know, in my career here, I've gotten one phone call to open the ferry back up. I love the ferry. I think that's a really cool idea, but the citizens of Putnam County subsidize that ferry. The rebuilding of the west side, I'm all in favor of that. The problem that we faced was, and we had this room packed, if you remember, Mr. Suggs, with the park official out there, and you've been to Washington to even talk to the Deputy Secretary of Interior about this. We can bring people across there. We can drop them off on the west side in the Ocala National Forest, but we only own just a very small piece of property at that landing. And then if they don't take care of their, and I don't want to use the term roads because they don't like to use the term roads out there, if they don't take care of their service area, then we can drop people off and say good luck getting to State Road 19. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying that we need to be mindful that when we do talk ferry, it is a road basically, and people, the citizens of Putnam County, have been subsidizing that. If it takes care of itself, this commissioner has no problem. I think it's a very cool trip, and if you never took the ferry across, I think you should. I think it's very, very historical. I think it's nostalgic. I think it's old Florida at its best, but we need to be mindful when we talk about that of all the ramifications, and that's my only comment.
Can you clarify your comment, if it takes care of itself? I'm not sure I follow your comment
sorry?
on that. When you said if it takes care of itself, what does
I
that
think,
mean?
when we look at subsidizing, we hired a group down there to basically run the ferry, and they charged a fee, but that in no way took care of the cost of that ferry running across the river. So I think that's what but in all reality, nothing we ever do is completely level and fair when it comes to taxes and fees. We just try to make them less burdensome on the people. But it is a route that people can use to get out, more convenient to cross the river. But I think we need to be mindful of that when we look at the people in the West End. Would they really use the ferry? The South End probably would a lot more than the West End. Probably people in Larkin don't even know there's a ferry out there, for all intents and purposes. But I think that's what we've got to be mindful of, Madam Chair. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Commissioner Pelletier.
In my less than 30 days being back in office, I have had several calls on this. It is in my district. I am working hard to see if we can't come to some resolution about fixing that down there. I think, one, it is I'm told the oldest now, hadn't been operational since, I think, Hurricane Irma, but it is the oldest ferry in the state. I think there's some historical value to that, and as I think Commissioner Harvey said, if you've never rode across it, it's a unique feeling to be out there with your vehicle floating across the middle of the river and thinking the worst could happen. But I've done it a time or two, and it has never happened, thankfully. But saying that, we have a potential development of some sort that we really don't know a whole lot about coming to the south end of the county, and I think that thing is going to be very an added aspect of that venue down there that gentleman is bringing forward, and it could turn into really be something that is very useful to everyone in Putnam County, as well as the attraction of people riding it to get to their destination in the south end of the county coming from the west side. I just think it's a good thing, and I'm going to pursue pushing this forward in the legislative session. Thank you.
Commissioner Newbold.
Well, I've only been on the job, so to speak, for a short period of time. I've got a handful of questions and comments from the opposite side of the river, so to speak, not the topic. I'll be putting together a meeting with some folk in the Palatka side here shortly, so I'll be able to come back with a little more information in the future. And, I'm a proponent of saving our historical sites and things of that nature, so I have interest in the topic, but we also have to be practical as well. Whatever we do has to make sense, and, maybe across time we can come up with some public-private partnerships that get a little more skin in the game across the board. So I'm glad to see that this isn't going to just be sunk, so to speak, and that there's a little, we'll put our brains to it before we take action. So thank you.
Commissioner Alexander.
Yes, I did have a constituent reach out to me about it, even though it's not in my district. He made reference to funds that were allocated to the ferry years ago, and he was kind of vague on whether they were spent or how they were spent. So I'd like to learn a little bit more of that, and I'd also like to know what the final cost might be to bring it up and operational. I know he said that they provided funds to rebuild the barge itself, so there is some community involvement and community interest in it. So I don't want to negate that. So I would like to learn a little bit more about it before we lobbied for it.
Yeah, so the reason, thank you, Commissioner Alexander, the reason this is in front of us today is particular to, are we going to ask our federal government to help us with this project? That's the bottom line. And so if it's a priority of this board, it has to be a priority of the board, not one particular commissioner. While one commissioner can push the idea, for us to set in front as a group in front of our legislators and say, this is what we want as one of our priorities in our county, and it's important to us, that we would have to do that as a group. So the question is, my understanding first is that we had some funding from FDOT before, and was it FDOT? At the state level, and it was a legislative priority, and we could not make the project work for a number of reasons. And then we sent the money back. That's the bottom line. And so this is a difficult discussion to have because we sent the money back. So now are we ready, as 5 commissioners, to say to the state, we're sorry we sent it back 3 years ago, but now we want the money back? And I think that's the challenge, and it's hard for me, and I'm speaking just on my behalf, it's hard for me to get behind this as a legislative priority. It is, because I'm good with us having the discussion, and if we end up using somebody's designated dollars that we just approved for it, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, all of these projects, we don't have dollars associated with them yet, so we're a little bit early, but we have to have the discussion to know, to direct staff as to whether or not to go forward and tell us what are these projects look like. And before, I believe it was a couple $1 million. Was it like the Fort Gates Ferry? It was before.
Couple million.
It was
1 and some change.
1 million and some change is what we had previously had gotten approval from the state. And since then, some work has been done in that area. And so, but then we also know the cost of goods has gone up. So it depends on what level are we talking about that we need to do this on. So that's where I'm at. I'll listen to Commissioner Palatka. You're next.
The number I was told was 1.7 million, and why we returned that money, that escapes me.
You should go back and watch the videos. It's quite entertaining.
Oh, okay. I'm not for spending any state money on the ferry itself, because that is a private entity owned by a private individual, and he is paid for his services, and therefore he should pay for repairs and take care of his equipment, have it insured or whatever that might be. I'm not in the ferry business. But we have one half of the landing fixed. It would not be very wise on our part to not fix the other half of the landing.
Mm-hmm.
What do we spend that money for? Nothing. So I'm still going to stay behind pushing that we fix the west side of the thing to make it operational, and then go to the next stage of finding a ferry or a ferry operator. It may be different than the one we had. I don't know that, because I'm not familiar with that individual, how that actually works, that part of it. But we do have half the project done. That would be a total waste of money if we did not fulfill and complete the project on this side. Not just because it's in my district, but I mean, you've gone halfway.
Right. And I don't know that I disagree with you on that, but I guess the question is, do you feel like it should be a legislative priority, or is it something that we should do locally with local dollars? I think that's the question that we're here today.
Well, I think we need some numbers back from engineering as to what that's going to cost before we decided exactly how much we do need. I never saw the damage that was done from the storm, but it must have been extensive for 1.7 million to be allocated.
I think there was a difference in FDOT standards versus our standards of making it operational to what we needed to make it serviceable versus a FDOT standard. Yep. So,
Change the length of it.
are you
I'm
further
good for now.
discussion?
For
Okay.
now.
Go ahead, Commissioner Alexander.
No, I agree. I just, I wanted to have some more discussion to learn about what the project was, what the damages were, because this is all brand new to me. JR and I spoke some about it earlier this week. I agree with Mr. Palatka that if we have made a partial investment, we might consider fixing it, but where are those funds going to come? And it's hard for me to go back and ask somebody for something a second time that they'd already given us once, and we couldn't follow through and finish up the deal. So, again, the question is, do we need numbers to see how much it is? If it's something trivial, maybe we fund it here, we figure it a different way.
Right.
So that's where I'm at.
Okay, and just for clarity, when you speak, Commissioner Alexander, and all of us actually, when we refer to JR, we need to refer to Grimes or to Newbold so that the public doesn't think we have done something that we're not supposed to be doing, as far as sunshine violation. So you had a conversation with Mr. Grimes.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry about
No,
that.
it's
I
okay,
forgot we
because
had
you know
the
what,
two of
I
those
know,
in here.
this is all new, it's not a problem, I just want to make sure that we're understood. So, am I understanding that on the port infrastructure, we were all okay with moving that for a legislative priority? Is that correct? Let's go, I'm sorry, I'm happy to go backwards.
Yes.
Yes, do we
Yes.
have a wave and support on that? Okay, and on the Fort Gates Ferry, okay, go ahead, I thought you were.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me, these are two different projects. So what you heard today, one was the east side of the river, one was the west side. The east side of the river, a commissioner and a private citizen convinced us that we didn't need to spend that much money, that we could do it in-house. And the Board of County Commissioners spent money to fix the east side of that. And you can watch the video, and you can even watch the last couple meetings ago that the citizen came here and projected his disappointment, although he took that project on. So, but this is a whole different conversation. This wasn't state money that we got for the west side. There was damage on the west side. And again, like I said, the conversation was we didn't have enough landing. We didn't have a whole lot of footprint down there. That was one issue. And the other was we advocated for those roads to get fixed. Congressman Yoho at the time did get some money to fix what we call a road, they call service area. And we've had him in this chamber. We've been to D.C. That shouldn't hold us up. But it is their property out there, and they can do what they want, and they made that very clear to us. So fixing the west side, I'm perfectly fine with. Having it a legislative priority, I'm probably not leaning towards that because I think it's a minor cost that we can do in-house and have and I agree with Commissioner Palacier when I said, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we need to look at the price and we need to look at who's manning that. And as long as it's not a burden on the taxpayers, I have no problem supporting that. But I don't think it's a legislative priority.
All right. So does that give staff direction?
So you want to, I have no issue with doing anything that the board directs, and I believe we can work on getting our cost estimates through our engineering department and bring back between now and July 9th. Do you want me to continue?
January 9th?
I'm sorry,
That's
January
okay.
9th. Do you want me to continue pushing this as a legislative, or do you want to just pull this off legislative and work in-house at this time?
I believe Commissioner Harvey and myself so far are wanting to not have it as a legislative priority. Is there anybody else on this board that does not want to have it as a legislative priority?
I don't think it should be a legislative priority. Again, I have a hard time going back and asking for money
So it
again.
sounds like we don't have the votes for it to be a legislative priority. However, we do have it as an item that we need to work on in the future.
Yes, Madam Chair, that's fine. Just for clarification, though, for those that are listening, to those that are involved with this, as we put our list of priorities together, my job is to reach out to each one of our commissioners and to also with our staff and see what projects might be out there. And I do appreciate the way that this commissioner has brought this forward, has already had some conversations outside of the legislative with some potential partnerships. So we'll continue to push that item through like that, as well as bring back the cost to the board for future funding from the BOCC.
All right, moving on, wastewater plant.
Yes, ma'am. As you know, this is for potential growth out there on the east end of Putnam County. We have to expand our wastewater treatment facility, so we're going to look to go back to legislation again this year. We actually had support this past session from both the Senate as well as the House, and then at the end of the budget process, it got cut. However, I think we need to go back one more time to see if we can get any dollars allocated for that expansion of that particular facility with the potential growth we already know is coming.
All right, Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is one of the most important ones we have. And the reason I say that is simply years and years ago when I first got here and Commissioner Palacier was here, we did the groundbreaking for the wastewater plant in East Palatka, down Yelvington Road, up on the hill up there. And honestly, since that time, we've had numerous storms, flooding events down on the riverside down in that area. We've had governors who toured the area wanting to get those septics off of the river. We've had water management active in our grant process of getting shared money to move septic to sewer along that river to make a healthier river. But I'm going to say, if we have a limited capacity, there's only so much we can do. And I think this is a priority. We need to tell the story right, and we need to let them know that basically this is what you wanted. And you wanted us to do this, and we need some help to finish the project out. So, Madam Chair, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Palacier.
As Commissioner Harvey said, I was here when that got started, and I did some research some months ago, and that plant at that time was at like 58, 59% capacity. And it's my understanding they don't run those plants to 100. They just can't do that. They have to have some fluctuation in there for, I guess, excessive rains, what have you, that may influx and, you know, cause a difference in how they operate that thing. So this would definitely need to be on the priority list. We need funds to help expand that for the potential growth that is coming to the East Palatka, San Mateo corridor area.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? So do we have a consensus from the board to move this forward? Yes. Sounds like it. All right. Next, we have financial software package.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. This is, as you know, we are working off of what's known as a green screen AS400 system. Have been for many a year. Is very antiquated, very outdated, very difficult to continue processing. And so Honorable Clerk of the Court Matt Reynolds, as well as Deputy Administrator Julianne Young, we have talked about this multiple times about possibly bringing this forward as an appropriation request. It's going to cost us somewhere between $1 and $2 million. I believe we might have some funds allocated through the Clerk of the Court. And if this is a need to be pushed through, what I would suggest is that we put Mr. Reynolds' staff and our staff together to work on the development of the softwares and the modules to make sure everybody is at the table, so we make sure we get what we need, so we have a true estimate going forward. But this, I'm going to tell you, as county administrator, scares me very, very much. We really got to start looking at getting ourselves into the 21st century, so to speak, with our financial software, because we're putting ourselves in a position to where if any type of catastrophic failure, and we're going to be in a tough position moving forward. And Mr. Reynolds, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe even once we get everything in place, it's probably a 2 to 3 year migration, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
So I would request, if you have any questions, let's ask the experts in the room, Mr. Reynolds and Ms. Young, about this appropriation request. But I think it's one that's very valuable.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've met with Mr. Reynolds regarding the software package, and as most of you know, I come from a large mechanical contractor background, and we dealt with software as a service. And every day you see on the news and the television, we've been hacked, or we've been this, or we've been that. Our data has been mined. And with the technology that we have in place currently, we are greatly at risk. And we will also lose, what we experienced in my history is that a lot of the software isn't supported anymore. Those minds that develop that are dead and gone, for lack of a better term, or retired. Mm-hmm. And some of the hard components aren't manufactured anymore. So we are in a bad position as a county, and I think we should all support this.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Newbold?
I would just speak in support of Commissioner Alexander's comments. I was surprised with how antiquated that system is. It would, we're only as good as that infrastructure backbone. So I would express my support for the project as well.
Mr. Reynolds, would you like to weigh in?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just add in whether the board wants to have this as a legislative request of the state or not. I am still a proponent of upgrading this software, and that's something that I've spoken with several of you before. When the budget true-up comes along this fiscal year, I was going to request of the board to set aside the return money that we just returned from last fiscal year. It's about $500,000. That should help start to build a reserve, and if we're able to have excess this year or not use the construction monies that the board just set aside at the last meeting, that can kind of be our nest egg to get started on this project. And as Mr. Suggs mentioned, it's going to be at least 18 months, probably more like 24 months minimum to get this, to get the ERP system completely changed out. So the sooner that we can start, the better. But I'm fully in support of asking the state for a legislative funding request for it.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Harvey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I am fully supportive of this project too. Mr. Clark showed me the potential of what we could be looking at, and when you want real-time data with your finances, I don't know about you, but I check my bank accounts every morning. Just normally have done that in my whole career as an agency owner. But real-time data is important to know what you got on hand and what you can spend, and our staff's time is worth a lot, and they're having to go into antiquated systems and try to pull information out, and it's difficult. And what you showed me would be vastly improved. Like almost immediately, we can tell you what the fund balance is in an account and what's income. And I think that's important. You know, you can only, it doesn't matter, told me years ago when I first got here that you make the decision based on the information you have at that moment. And if we're making it on bad information, then we can't make the right decision. So I appreciate that, and I support this as an item.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. It sounds like we've got the support. I just want to say, for me, it's all about efficiency. And anytime we can become more efficient, we can serve our citizens better. So it sounds like we've got support to move that request forward to a legislative priority. Next is courthouse design. Would you like me to take that? Or do you want to take it?
Sure, but I can add in
Okay.
as well.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So as you know, the courthouse has had some issues over the years. And what this would do is just simply we're asking for a needs assessment to decide whether we need to renovate the courthouse or to potentially build a new one. But it would be a needs assessment. So we would have an outside agency come in, an outside firm that does this all the time. They would meet with every different group that utilizes the courthouse, and then they would come back with a report that says this is what you should be doing to meet the needs of the current and future of the courthouse. So that does not mean that we, as a county commission, would be funding the courthouse or funding the building. It's us. This is the first step forward to see what are the needs of the courthouse so that we know in the future, because let's face it, we have to start thinking about the future, people. We can't just be putting out fires every day. We got to start planning and thinking about the future. And one of those future things that we have to think about is the courthouse, the staff that's in it, from the public defenders to the state attorney's office, and then how does that look forward? And then, they can truly come back and say, you've got enough space, you need to move this here and move that there.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But I feel like a needs assessment would help us get to that point. Clerk Reynolds, if you want to step in on that.
Yes, ma'am. Just to back up a little bit for the newer commissioners who may not be familiar with kind of the background story on it, this discussion was kind of born out of the recent decision to list the old Clark building for sale. That building was originally purchased with the idea in mind to renovate it and move the state attorney's office over into that building. And there was bids and plans that were put out. More recently, when meeting with the state attorney's office, their main issue was security related, and their question was, is the county going to provide security in that building as well as the courthouse building? And as you all know, funds are limited. So the security contract that we already have in place is set at a certain budget amount. Having to add more guards into a separate building, it just didn't seem feasible. So in discussion with county staff, the idea was kind of, it sounded like it would be more efficient, more effective to expand upon the current courthouse, since those entities that are located in the courthouse do need more additional space. The state attorney's office is really kind of busting at the seams. So that's kind of where this idea came from, was either a needs assessment of of expanding the current courthouse so that those entities have plenty of space and can remain behind courthouse security so that people coming in to see them have to go through security, or a complete new facility. So I'm definitely on board with this. The clerk's office, we make do with the space that we have throughout 4 other buildings that are located down there. But like you said before on the previous item about financial software, it's about efficiency, and there are a couple of pain points that I see personally, one of them being we don't really have a lobby for whenever we have jury duty first thing Monday morning. If it's bad weather outside, there's oftentimes a line down the sidewalk into the parking lot of people waiting to get in to go through security to come in for jury duty. So, an expanded area within the courthouse or something like that would also be beneficial for the citizens that we're requiring to come down and serve on jury duty. So I'm definitely in support of that, and I definitely like the idea of a needs assessment so that we can determine, we can talk with Public Defender's Office, Guardian Ad Litem, State Attorney's Office, Court Administration, my office, all of the different partners that are located throughout those 5 buildings down at the courthouse campus to see what the true needs are and what makes the most sense.
And isn't there some specific requirements in statute as far as size of office space and that kind of stuff?
There is. Florida Statutes 29.008 says that the county has to provide space for all of the entities that I just mentioned. And if you dig further into it, there's some Department of Management Services that provides requirements on office spaces and things like that. But that's really getting down into the weeds and the nuts and bolts of it. And like, I mentioned earlier, we are making do with the
Sure.
space that we have, and
We all are.
we just kind of make it work. But that kind of gives guidance if you were to look at it strictly regarding the spaces that you should have versus the number of employees that each of those entities has, and that's what I'm assuming this an outside firm would do for us.
That's
is
what
to
I would assume.
assess total amount of employees that each entity has, and then they could extrapolate, the office space required and whatnot.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, last year during my reign as chairman, is that proper? My time served as chairman. We approached the chief judge and we approached the state attorney to sell that Ronnie Clark building. There was 4 parcels there. We put 3 out to bid. We kept 1 down there, the farthest one to the old Baptist church or the bank building, if you will. So the idea was to look at, with the promise from the chief judge, that because trying to retrofit that building to what the needs of they needed for the state attorney and public defender was just not going to happen. And then they would be exposed when they walk across the road. So really the security that we could provide didn't really accomplish what they were looking to do. So the promise was made that we would go in this direction and look at it. But keep in mind, even though we call it a legislative priority, there's silos of money at the state level for courthouse expansion projects. So it's not like you would just put all your hopes on your legislator having an appropriation. You're putting your hopes on the fact that the legislators support the idea and we move forward. And at this moment, we have the full support of the chief judge. We have the full support of the public defender's office, full support of the state attorney's office. And when we talk about courthouse expansion, I think JR had a vision of the parking lot area, a building there, not to move it away from downtown, but to enhance that area to provide for a better secure location. So I think this is a win-win for Putnam County. All of the surrounding counties have had courthouse expansions. We have not, ever. And I think it's our time to make that request, but we do have to know what we don't know prior to going into it. So I fully support this. Thank you.
We have to know that's what the purpose of the needs assessment is. Commissioner Alexander.
Okay, so this discussion is just regarding whether or not we support the needs assessment of the facility.
That's correct.
Okay, so when we undergo the needs assessment, are we going
tell us the needs, so to speak. I mean, I'm not trying to
Well-
simplify it, but I think that's the whole idea is, what improve, if we're going to stay there, if that's what the assessment says, yes, this building is viable and you need to stay here. This is the way I see it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just want to
Staff
make
can
sure that we
correct
were
me if I'm
touching
wrong,
on
but
that.
yeah, but what do we need to do to make it, safe and expansion and that kind of stuff? So we need an outside firm to come in and do the needs assessment for the entire courthouse. Not only what's safety, space, and then also, I think it is, if there's work that needs to be done on the existing. Or they could say the whole thing's not worth anything and you got to tear it down and build something new somewhere else. I don't know what they're going to say, but it's not for, it takes it from us to a professional who can view all sides, come in unbiased, and say, this is what the needs are, and then this is how we think you can resolve the issues.
Right. Well, I understand it, and that's if that's what it is intended, yes, because the only discussions that we had there were just about safety and efficiency.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that the physical health of the building was also addressed, and whether or not
That's valid.
that that was looked at, and if we could line up with some of the funding in the silos that Mr. Harvey had talked about based on physical condition of the building,
Yeah.
mold, other issues, that
Right.
we might be able to procure funding or secure funding from the state. But
Right.
I don't want us to fall into a situation where we got to have a new building, and we end up like some of the other entities in our community where they had to have a new building, and the previous building that was unsafe is still being used currently.
Correct. I agree with what you're saying. I don't disagree with that.
Yes, and I just want to make sure we were looking at the
And I think,
physical health,
again,
too,
it
of the
takes it
building.
off of us and onto an outside independent firm to tell us those kind of things. So,
Okay.
and the first step would be that needs assessment, and then we would then reconvene and say, this is what the report says. And it's not going to take, it's going to be, if we got the funding for the needs assessment, it'll be a year out probably before we ever got the result. So this is long-term planning.
Yeah, I just didn't want to do a partial assessment where there might be other issues that aren't addressed, where
I
we had
agree
to
with
look at
you.
it again. So
I think
that was
that's very
that's my
valid.
only comment.
All right, so it sounds like we have support for, I'm sorry, Commissioner Pelletier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support that absolutely, but something that I hope is going to be looked at in about this possible expansion of the building is parking. Parking is a prime down there, especially as you said, when you have jury duty. I mean, there's just absolutely nowhere for anybody to get.
You're absolutely right
And
about
I hope that would be considered. I'm sure when that courthouse was built and even expanded upon, it was probably in thought of a county that was going to maybe max out at somewhere around 40, 45,000 people, and here we are tipping at 80. So we certainly probably have outgrown our resources there, and we need to be looking into the expansion if it's feasible. But the parking is paramount on my list with the appeared growth that might be coming downtown. It's something also that might be a private partnership that we could come together with some sort of terms there that might work for everybody. Saying that, I'm going to excuse myself
sir.
as I need to attend this funeral.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, moving on, medical examiner request. Ms. Young?
You want to do it? Or?
Mr. Suggs,
Either
my
one.
apologies.
No worries. As you know, Putnam County partners with Williams, Volusia, Flagler, and St. Johns County for the medical examiner services. St. Johns County has found a need to update their facilities. So while we were at conference last week, as a matter of fact, Deputy Administrator Brad Bradley got with us. They're putting together their legislative appropriation, and it's a request for a new facility for the medical examiner. And so what they've asked from us this morning is if we would be in support of that process for St. Johns County. And I know there's a lot of questions that we need to have answered moving forward, but I think it's probably the appropriate thing to do because we do have a 30% share, I believe it is, in that contractual agreement. So anything that this board can do to support that board in their endeavor for a new facility, I think is warranted.
So just for clarification, we're not asking, we don't have a financial request in this other than that we would like to support St. Johns County in their endeavors to facilitate a new building. Is that correct?
So as part of the collaboration, we share a medical examiner's office, which means the expenses to the medical examiner's office are divided out based on utilization for the prior year. So each year, our percent of expenses that we have to cover changes. If we collectively, the 4 counties, or three counties, I'm sorry, we only share a medical examiner with 3 counties, are able to get the legislative appropriation, it takes the burden of paying for the new space off of the counties. We still will have the financial burden of supporting building maintenance and overhead, as well as the operational expenses of the ME's office. However, last year, St. Johns County attempted this appropriation. It got through several stages and then vetoed, and so we had a decision to make collectively, and St. Johns County graciously kind of pumped the brakes because the bill that they were going to end up sending to Putnam was quite substantial and would have been burdensome. So they're asking for us to collaborate together so that we can take the burden off of all 3 of the counties that participate.
Commissioner Harvey, you recognize.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support this project. I think it's very important that we move this forward. But in all reality, we did get a bill after we were done with our budget, and it was significantly higher than what we budgeted for, and we were not aware of that. But that was the days-to-day operation dollars. Those aren't a building dollar. So I think that we do need to support St. Johns County in their endeavor and write a letter or stand up and applaud, whatever we need to do to make that happen. Maybe that would help reduce some of the burden on us in the future for building maintenance and things like that. So thank you, Madam Chair.
So just for clarification, we're asking for a letter of support?
A letter
And discussion during our legislative day.
Right,
as a
something that
priority.
Putnam is behind, just like the courthouse,
Just like
which
the
would be
courthouse.
shared for the 7th Judicial Circuit. We would share this initiative with St. Johns and Flagler County, that's our tri-county medical examiner. And so we would all petition on behalf of those 3 counties. The proposed location is in St. Johns County, but that's where the ME's office is today.
Correct. Okay. All right. Is there any discussion from the commission? Everybody in support of this? Yes. All right. Sounds like you have the support. Go ahead. Oh, okay. And fairgrounds continuation, support the continuation of the Maltby building. That's pretty self-explanatory.
Yes, it
Do we
is.
need to have a discussion on that? I think everybody's in favor of that. You got a question? Go ahead, Commissioner. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question, and I am supportive of the building. Don't get me wrong when I say this, but when I first became a commissioner, one of the big things that rubbed me a little bit the wrong way was we were buying the front end of the car with no idea how we were going to buy the middle car and the back end of the car. Sometimes we just have to live within our means and buy a lesser car. I worry about this project might be getting larger and larger and larger as the day goes on. I support a new building over there, do not get me wrong, but sometimes we have to live within our means, and if we don't get any more appropriation, then what do we look like? And what is the board on the hook for at that point? Do we say we're not going to go forward? Do we say we're going to send the money back? We've heard that comment today. We don't want to do that. So I think we just need to be mindful of how we go forward at this point and what are we really trying to accomplish. And I think the building over there is a great building. It's for educational purposes. It's badly needed. But let's be mindful of not building the front end of the car and hoping somebody builds the back end. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I don't disagree with your comments. Commissioner Newbold.
Well, although I don't disagree with them, it is valid. The price tag on that project has gotten large. There's been a model used by the state and other fair authorities for a number of years now, using these phased approaches, and they've been very successful. There are a number of fairgrounds out there that have 4, 5, 6 year phased approaches. Now, I cannot guarantee that those will continue to be funded, but there's a certain amount that I would be willing for us as a county to run forward with. There'd be a fantastic asset out there. Anyway, I'm in support of the project, and in the future, if this doesn't come through appropriation, I'm in favor of looking at reallocation of Better Place Plan funds. So there are other avenues, which I would rather not dive into, but anyway, I'm in support of the project.
All right. So for now, we're support of the continuation of the Maltby Building Phase 3. Is that correct? Everybody's in support of that. All right, thank you. And just one other last thing. I believe I heard this when we were at the convention, that there was some discussion, and maybe Commissioner Harvey can help, about the change of the population, asking the legislature to change the level of population for the fiscally constrained counties. Can you speak about that? Because
can.
we're right in that tight spot right now.
Well, currently, we're, at the last census, we were under the threshold, so we still got to maintain our fiscally constrained county for two reasons. One, we didn't have population, and one, we were contiguous with Bradford County, who is a physical constrained county. So those two things worked in our favor. But what we are seeing, there's one state agency that doesn't recognize that, and Julianne's been dealing with that, who thinks that our match should be a little bit more. So we've been able to avoid the matches that other counties have to do because of our physically constrained status. But when that time comes and that next census happens and we're over that threshold, and maybe Bradford County is not contiguous, I mean, not that they're not contiguous, they'll stay that way, but maybe they're not physically constrained, then that could throw us out of that. And when we get thrown out of that, it's not really the glide path. You're kind of thrown in the middle of the pool, and you're trying to swim. And we need to be mindful of those grant dollars when we talk about 25% match and 50% match. Those monies add up very fast. And right now we're very blessed not to have those. But we need to be mindful of that as going into the future, that we need to stay physically constrained as long as possible, and even advocating for a glide path when it comes to our portion of the share.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Madam Chair.
speaking about that. Commissioner Newbold, go ahead.
I guess I need some clarification on, where that matrix is. When do we fall out of this favored status?
Commissioner, I think it's up to the state agency, and we're arguing some of that with one now. They've interpreted statute different, that agency has, than the rest of them. I think it's just going to become project by project and agency by agency, and we're going to still make our case that we're fiscally constrained at that point.
And I guess my point of bringing it up is, if we're standing here in front of our legislators, it's a very good point to remind them of our, our funding. And we do rely, I don't want to say rely, we hope to get the support from the state, but on a lot of our projects like SCOP and SCRAP grant and all those things, our match is very little to none on a lot of these grants that we get. And so because we're under that radar, but as we know, we're growing. And so the concern that I have, and it was brought up at the convention, was where's that number, right? Is it 75,000? Is it 80? Is it 90? And so we just want our legislators to be aware that when we're making these rules in Tallahassee, that how that affects a small county like ours. And that's where my point was at on that. I see a couple of lights. Commissioner Alexander.
So what is the determining factor? Is it a number? Is it
It is population. It is population.
So do we know what that threshold is? Is it 90,000, 100,000?
75,000.
Yeah, we're right there at it.
And our census had 73.
Okay.
And Attorney Commando, would you like to weigh in?
My only suggestion, because I travel around a little bit from county to county, is if there's any way you could convince the legislature that it shouldn't be strictly population-based, because even though our populations increases, our property values are not increasing at the same rate as some of our kind of
that's very valid.
So if there was a formula that looked at the rate at which your property values increased and the population, that to me would be a more fair way to determine whether or not you fit into that category.
Yeah, I agree, and I appreciate that input, because as we both know, the average home in Putnam County is $250, the average home in St. Johns County is in the 600 plus. So a big difference. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was remiss to say there's another factor in there too, and it's, Julianne, if you'll correct me when I do this, it's based on the mill, how much mills produced, or the value. There's a value formula from the property appraiser that can also trigger that non-compliance. And when I say that, I say if we didn't have the Georgia Pacifics and the Seminoles in this area, probably wouldn't worry about it. but their value is really high. And so it's kind of an abnormal number, if you will. When you look at Columbia County, who is basically their same size with 2 interstates in it, and they don't have a Georgia Pacific or a Seminole Electric. So there's a third peg to that stool that needs to be looked at, and the property appraiser does report those numbers to the state. Am I correct, Julian?
Yes, sir, you're correct. And depending on the funding source, there's a different metric as to what happens when we trigger that, right? So the fiscally constrained dollars are going to have a stair step. The one that we hit last year that had a different definition as to the metric that they used, it was a overnight. You hit the number based on the state census, and you now no longer qualify just like that, no matter what you had in the works. So what we're going to see over the next couple of years is a disproportionate impact to Putnam County as we continue to trickle up, not enough to replace those revenue generations,
Correct.
but enough to continue growth. And so certainly very important to all of our small or fiscally constrained counties throughout the state.
Thank you for that discussion. So I just think that we should touch on that during our comments, however that would be.
Madam Chair, may I
Yes.
finish? What I was talking about earlier when we look at buying the front end of the car, I didn't mean no disrespect to anything that we were doing. We just have a lot of moving parts out there that could come. The chickens could come home to roost, and we need just to be mindful. And Commissioner Newbold, you're right. If we have to say, if we don't get this and we still want that, then we're going to do this. I'm all for that. But let's know what we need to know going into the process. And I think long-term planning, as Commissioner Wilkinson has said, with the courthouse and the other things we're talking about today, we need to be mindful of if this happens again, because we were kind of aware of that, and it happened overnight, and it was a match we had to do. Now, let me say this. I love shopping at stores where there's buy one, get one free, because I feel like I come home with 4 of this when I really only needed 1, but I felt like I saved money. You know, I got a free one out of the deal, right? I like it when people partner with us and pay half the bill. I like it when they partner us and pay 75% of the bill. I like it when they pay 80% of the bill. I like it. But we need to know what our obligation is.
Correct.
That's all I'm saying. Thank you, Commissioner Wilkinson. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. With that, I think that closes our legislative request as we move forward. So I appreciate the discussion. I know that was a little long-winded, and I'm sorry, but we had to have that because of timing constraints. All right. At this time, are there any public comment on miscellaneous items? This portion of the agenda is designed to allow citizens an opportunity to bring matters to the attention of the board. It is not reasonable to expect that the board will engage in debate or deliberation about matters on which the board has received no prior information as part of the agenda. Please limit your time to 3 minutes. Public comment cards are conveniently placed at the meeting room entrance and should be submitted prior to the meeting to the deputy clerk who sits to the right of the podium. Madam Clerk, do you have any cards? Do we have anybody who wishes to speak publicly? All right. Hearing none, we'll move into appointments. Commissioner Palatka had to step out, and he has given Administrator Suggs his district appointments. District appointments do not require a vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Commissioner Palatka had asked me if I would follow up for him as he had to exit this morning. He's looking to reappoint. These are all district appointments. He's looking to reappoint Gina Condrick to the Affordable Housing.
Okay.
Her term expires, I believe, this year, December 31st of 2024. He also wants to, let me scroll this down. Justin Morris has a district appointment to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
And he has asked to reappoint Mark Fisher to the ZBOA as a district appointment.
Okay. All right, Laura, you have those? All right. Commissioner Alexander.
Yes, ma'am, I just have one. There is an at-large position open with the Planning Commission, and I would like to nominate Jason Sheffield.
All right, that requires a vote. So you have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
You have a second, a motion, a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All All right.
To be
Thank you,
clear,
Commissioner.
Commissioners, that's filling the at-large resignation for Mr. Froelich.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, not Mr. Hodge.
No, Mr. Hodge is going to continue his term, or he's going to stay on. I did speak to him.
Well, then you need to make that motion.
Okay, I apologize.
It's okay, no, I just saying, we need that spot as well. I wasn't trying to be,
No, thank you. Again, I would like to reappoint Stanley Hodge.
do we have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, great, that fills those 2 spots, I appreciate that. Or anything else, Commissioner Alexander, for appointments at this time?
No, ma'am.
All right. Commissioner Newbold.
I'd like to reappoint Anna Cruz to the District 1 slot for Parks and Recreation. And also, I'd like to appoint Kirsten Knowles of Crescent City to the District 1 vacancy on the Fishing Fund.
On the fishing fund, oh, I missed that one. Okay, Kirsten Knowles,
Yes, and I have his address and contact information I can pass.
okay, to give to Laura. All right, anything else?
No, nothing, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Harvey.
Madam Chair, I have none. Thank you.
All right, let me get to my paper. Okay. Affordable Housing Committee, at large, I would like to appoint Bill Pickens, former commissioner, as an Affordable Housing Committee I believe it's an employer representative. So that would fill one of those spots.
Didn't you kind of threaten him to do that?
I would like to reappoint our building contractor on the Contractors Review Board, Aaron Gill. Is that a vote?
You need a vote on Mr. Pickens.
Okay. Oh, I need a vote on Mr. Pickens. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move approval.
Move approval. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. To the Contractor Review Board, reappoint Aaron Gill. I spoke with him, and he's willing to continue his service.
Vote.
I made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. And then for the Fair Authority, for District 2, I would like to remove Giovanni Palencia and replace him with Marshall Fulgham as my District 2 appointment. All right. And then moving on, we go to comments. Clerk of Courts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to take a quick moment to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Madam Chair, I'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that Mr. Clerk's birthday was last Friday, so happy birthday.
Thank you, Commissioner. Much
And
appreciated.
also, the courthouse looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I agree. I thought it looked very well for the parade. So
Yeah, it looked very well. Thank you. County Attorney Commando.
That's a tough one to follow, but happy Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone as well.
County Administrator.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, just a quick reminder that we have our luncheon today at 12:15. It's been pushed back, so if anyone wants to take the opportunity to go over and visit with the family of the rebels, you'll have time to do so. After that, just again, this is really for all 5 commissioners, but especially the 3 new commissioners. Thank you all for your time. You've been coming in on a regular basis and visiting and getting up to speed on things and asking a lot of great questions. I will say and echo this on behalf of the administration and staff. We really appreciate that, and it shows when we get in here. So thank y'all so much for that. And just joining everybody else, I want to wish my staff and the commissioners and the residents of Putnam County a very, very Merry Christmas, healthy holiday season, and a prosperous New Year. And thank you all for all we've done for this past 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before we go into commissioner comments, I do want to backtrack a little bit. We have some board appointments for commissioners. We have a space on the Ride Solution Board. We need a county commissioner to serve on that. We need a county commissioner to serve on the Solid Waste Adjustment. Is that correct? And then also on the Small County Coalition. Commissioner Newbold, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I'd be interested in serving on the Waste Adjustment
Okay.
Program.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to volunteer for the Ride Solutions
God bless you.
Committee. Yeah, that's something my wife has told me is very important to her, so happy wife.
All right. All right. Welcome aboard. I'm sure that you'll be well received.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think you should be serving with me on the Small County Coalition.
All right. So with those three appointments, everybody and good with those? Okay. And then on the Development Authority, we have myself, Commissioner Newbold, and Commissioner Harvey. Are you aware of that?
Yes. thank
Okay.
you.
All right. So that's all of our appointments for that. All right. Now, moving along to Commissioner comments, starting with Commissioner Alexander.
Yes, ma'am. I had wanted to discuss some things about Dunn's Creek boat ramp, but I would like to table that until the next meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any other comments you'd like to make?
I did miss an appointment. Can we backtrack to that
Sure.
real quick? As far as Jerry Hafner, District 3 appointee for the Planning Commission, I would like to reappoint him.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any other comments?
I'm done.
Okay. Commissioner Newbold.
I wanted to thank a few folks. The city of Palatka, Crescent City, Interlochen, they all put on fantastic Christmas parades. You know, those things, I don't know, you look at them and you think it's fluff and it's silly, but I mean, they were well organized, well attended by the public, and they just give you a great feel of small town America that we really are. So I thank those communities. I thank all the commissioners for, participating. It was wonderful. So thank you guys. I'd like to thank Public Works, Mr. Stout and Mr. Grimes, just their quick action, their willingness to shepherd me through some little challenges. And we've got good staff who are ready to jump into anything and support the citizens of the county. So thank you guys. And
All right.
Merry Christmas.
All right. All right. Buttons are going on and off up here. I'm just trying to see. All right. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to say, it's a pleasure for us to be in the parade and ride together and get to see our small town communities. We can't make everything. There's no possible way in this holiday season, but we truly, it's a wonderful time. The Interlochen parade the other night, yes, the kids were very close to the side of the road. And
Eugene was a great driver.
they kind of surprise you because they go from one side of the street and they've learned to go to the other side because they can double their candy load at that point. But it's so nice to hear as we go down the streets, your name being called out or thank you for being here. That's all about. And, serving in Putnam County, I've never served anywhere else and I don't have a desire to. I love Putnam County. We have diversity. We have challenges. But I can tell you there's a fundraiser going on almost every weekend. There's someone being helped in this community every day. And it brings joy to me to see that. I also want to wish our staff a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We had a little celebration for them yesterday, which was minimal at best, but it was good. Good food and good time. And we want them to know how much we appreciate them in a very small way. Wish we could always do bigger and better, but I can tell you that it's very appreciative by the staff that we did help and serve yesterday and the food. Also want to apologize publicly to my new commissioners because I should have known better. I did not know until I was in Tampa last week, and I am the chairman of the Institute of County Government, that there will not be a new commissioner workshop at the first of the year, as always, like I told you there would be. I am traveling to Tallahassee this coming Thursday to meet with our FAC staff. I have a trust meeting Thursday night and Friday morning, and try to resurrect a meeting at the first of the year for new commissioners. So that egg was on my face. They kind of did that. Staff did that on their own. The administrator of FAC, Ginger Delegog, had promised and has promised that she would come to Putnam County and put on that for you. but we're going to try to do it a little different. 77 new commissioners joined the team with the FAC staff during this election period. Only about 35 took advantage of going to Tampa. So there's still a big pool of people that we could get. So that's my goal Friday, is to sit down and see how we can make that happen during legislative days. So I do apologize. I did bring back packets. Commissioner Wilson, if you'll pass them down there to Dan. And this is, the biggest packet is your small county coalition in the back. I ask that you maybe one night when you're before bed, while you're sitting there, go through that packet, because it shows you what a value of a mill is throughout Florida and the counties. It's really good data sets that are going to help you in the future, what the value of a mill here in Putnam County is. So when you start looking at the budget for this coming year, you'll be able to say, well, if we lower a half a mill, this is what it's going to cost. If we raise, you kind of do the math on your own, but it's valuable information in how we compare to other surrounding counties. Now, keep in mind, when you look at what a mill here is in Putnam County versus, for example, St. Johns County, and then you look at if you go on and look at their tax base, they have a lot of different fees attached. So our mill might look like we're higher, but the fees that they charge are a lot more. So everything's relevant, so just kind of look at that and keep that in mind. But you have a great staff. I'm sure you figured that out already, that there's not a question that they can't answer or get the answer to. And but those data sets are very important. And Madam Chairwoman, I want to say I appreciate what you've done so far this Christmas season. You've decorated, you've worked your butt off on the float. You've kept us all in line, and I appreciate that. And I look forward to a prosperous 2025. So Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to recognize a few people in the audience. We have a representative from St. Johns River Water Management, and we also have a representative from North Florida Regional Council. So thank you for both of you for coming today to view our Board of County Commissioner meetings. Also, Mayor Michelle Myers reached out to me via text and wanted me to personally say thank you to each one of the commissioners for coming down there and attending their parade. And of course, we've been to Interlaken, we've been to Palatka. We have another busy weekend. We cannot make them all, but we do our best. I had 4 events on Saturday. Several other commissioners we had at least 2. Some of us had 3, 4 events. So we were all busy trying to do things throughout the community, and I'm glad to see that we have such an active board. Various toy drives going on throughout the county or have already happened. I know Commissioner Alexander helped with one of those for the boats and for foster kids, and there's other toy drives going on. I also want to give thanks to Paws for Putnam. They did a treat toy drive. They had a box here at our office, and they did that. And also during the Porch Fest, there was an adoption event for our animals out at Animal Services, along with on Sunday there was another event in Jacksonville. So we try our best to continue to hold these adoption events. And I just want to say thank you to this board. I look forward to the new year. I feel like we've got a lot to do, but I also feel like that we're well equipped, and I look forward to serving with each one of you. Thank you to our staff and administration. And everyone have a good Christmas and a happy New Year. Thank you. This meeting's adjourned.